Flash forward 35 years. I'm doing Abu Ghraib from the New Yorker. I'm doing this story about this horrible, and what I'm doing is, I'd learned about Abu Ghraib 5 months before I could get anything in print. I learned about it from an Iraqi general who was living in Syria. I went to see him. And he said, what he told me over Christmas of '03 was it was such a bad prison that the women in the prison were sending messages home to their brothers and fathers to come kill them because they'd been dishonored by the American soldiers. I'm not talking about rape in that society. You know, it's a society in that world, shame. We operate on guilt, they operate on shame. GIs playing, you know, grab ass would do it. Going into the showers and taking pictures would do it. You know, in that society, it's the mores are so different. And our soldiers are so uneducated in it. So I'm not clear, I'm not suggesting it was physical abuse, but there was abuse. Abu Ghraib, what I was doing, I was gunning for Rumsfeld because I knew Rumsfeld was deep into this. But how do you prove that stuff is tough to prove? So I'm writing these articles for the New Yorker. I wrote 3 in 3 weeks. For some of you know the New Yorker. It's very hard to do one story because there's so many checking. Everything is fact checked. And all my sources have to talk independently. By the way, the anonymous sources are not only known to my editors, they have to talk independently to fact checkers. And they have to trust me enough to trust me when I tell them that you will be okay. These guys will honor, like I would, anything you say to them. And so we get a lot of confidence in what we're being told. So we know there's something there. And so I'm doing these stories. And I'm also going on the air talking about the stories because that's part of the job that I have with the New Yorkers, to publicize the stories. And I'm on all, you know, Abu Ghraib was so big, how hard was it to publicize? But I'm on some public radio talk show, Call It. And I'm still going to write 1 or 2 more pieces I want to do. So I have my mind somewhere else. And a woman calls in and said, I had a child in the unit. And what she meant by that is there was a military police unit. The 372nd MP was a rural unit. And this unit was MPs, traffic cops. They were sent to Iraq, mobilized in the summer of '03 after the war began, after we took Baghdad. They were sent to Baghdad to be cops. At some point, early fall, they were retrained for a couple of weeks and sent into Abu Ghraib prison as prison guards. A couple of them had worked in prison guards, but an unbelievable thing to do. The most complicated, hateful prison, full of 20,000 people, had no idea why they're there, or, you know, whatever it was. And they got out of control. They're running these pictures, they're doing this junk that you saw. And one of the kids in January of '04, the timing is important, for reasons that probably have nothing to do with dislike about what was going on, but personal problems. Fight with somebody else, rats them out. Goes to the Army police authorities with CDs of everything. And the fun and games begin. And by April, May, I get the story. CBS gets some of the pictures too, but I'm hunting for the story. I get it. And I'll begin writing about it maybe late April, early May. So this woman calls. I'm on the radio at the same time period. As I said, I was running the story 3 weeks in a row. She calls in between this and she says she's got a child in this unit. She calls this radio station I'm on, the PBS show I'm on. Here's the story. Kid comes back in March, before Abu Ghraib is known, but after the Army investigates. She's not charged with anything. Totally changed. She's a young woman, very pretty. She comes home, she's been married, leaves the husband, leaves the family, goes off, gets a night job, won't talk to anybody. Nobody knows what the hell's going on. Obviously acutely depressed, but that's just a guess. A real mess. Abu Ghraib comes out 6 weeks later. The woman who called me, whatever the relationship, mother, whatever you want to call her, doesn't matter. She goes and knocks on the door of the child's apartment, shows her, you know, New York Daily News photograph of, you know, this naked stuff going on, this horrible stuff. The daughter slams the door. She then starts calling around for help. Nobody will listen to her. Nobody. So she brought home a computer, and the woman said at that point, not dealing with Freud or the unconscious, forget about that. She decided then she was going to go take that computer that had been left in the house before she moved out. She came back from Iraq with it and just used it in her office. She was a salesperson. So she began to delete files. And she hit a file marked Iraq. And I'll pop 80 digital photographs. You've all seen those kind of photographs. That's something no family member should see. It's the one that the New York Times, the New Yorker published, was the iconic photo of the man in late 30s, early 40s, standing naked in front of the cell, hands behind his head, not even being allowed to put his hands where he wants to protect himself. 2 Belgian shepherds, the New Yorker called them German shepherds. We got letter after letter about that. Don't mess around with dog lovers. Anyway, 2 Belgian shepherds snarling, literally 3 feet away, being held by the handlers right that close. So we published this one iconic photograph of it. But in the sequence, the dogs bit the man in a sensitive place. And at the last picture, blood all over the place. The last picture is some soldier, a woman, one of the woman soldiers, with gloves on, is trying to sew it up with a needle and thread some of the injuries. So I see her when taking her to dinner, and she says to me, "You know, there's something I didn't tell you," she says, "about that whole event." I said, "What?" She said, "Well, when she came home, there was about 6 weeks between the time she came home with the first photographs of Abu Ghraib and the story became known. And as I said, she left everything, but she did something else. She began to get tattooed every weekend. And she filled up her body, arms, legs, trunk, up to here, with dark, ugly, horrible tattoos. And again, you go to these quote-unquote," she said, "it's as if she was trying to change her skin." And so, as I get out of here, we've got a couple minutes left, I postulate this to you, as awful as it is, as hard as it's going to be to get out of there, and how we're not being really told how hard it is, and maybe that's the way it is in politics. You know, nobody wants to tell the bad news. Particularly, it's going to be much harder to get out, not only with honor, but in a way that fulfills our moral obligation to the innocents. Everybody there didn't like Saddam. Most people didn't have a clue about the politics, simply went around their life trying to get the best they could for their children and for their family. And we've destroyed so much of life there that we have such an obligation. And that doesn't get discussed. But also, the kids coming back, it's over 600,000. This is a classified number. I have somebody in the VA system. 630,000 have come in for either physical or mental problems, more than half of them for mental problems already. We're overwhelmed with the psychiatric distress, and most of the physical problems can't be found, are not traceable to anything other than we put ourselves in a tremendous jam. The cost of this war will not end. The billions will continue to roll out because we're going to have to make an extraordinary effort to try and help these people coming back, to help them cope with what they did. And so we have a lot, you know, I'm sorry to be such a horrible downer, but it's just we've done a lot of wrong. We've done a lot, we've been led down the wrong path by leaders who've misrepresented what's going on, because I don't think the American people would have supported much of this if they'd known the whole story. And maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't.